Welcome back. We are going to talk about map fundamentals. So we learned about sets. Now it's time to learn about the other new JavaScript data structure, that is maps. And let me start by telling you that maps are a lot more useful than sets. So what exactly is a map? Well, it's certainly not the same thing that we use in real life to find our ways around. Now instead, in JavaScript, a map is a data structure that we can use to map values to keys. And so just like an object, data is stored in a key value pairs in maps. Now the big difference between the objects and maps is that in maps the keys can have any type, and this can be huge. So in objects the keys are basically always strings, but in maps they can have any kind of key. So it could even be objects or arrays or other maps, so that can lead to some really great and advanced stuff. So let's create a restaurant map here. Constant restaurant equals to, here we are using new map, and that's the easiest way to create a map. And it is actually to create a empty map, just like without passing anything in it. And then to fill up the map, we can use the set method, and then here we pass into arguments. So let's say restaurant dot set. Here we'll say name. Here we'll use some restaurant name here, classico Italian. And you see that this method is pretty similar to add method that we did in sets, but both allows us to add new elements to the data structure. And remember that we can use any data type that we want. Let's say the restaurant has two locations, so you can create a key with a number. It doesn't always has to be a string. Restaurant dot set, here let's say 1, and then here let's say another restaurant name here, Francis. Okay, and then here also it is in Italy. And here let me use one more restaurant here, restaurant dot set. Here using as you can see here, we logged this restaurant to here. You can see the map. Okay, this is what the set looks like after adding the key number 2. So here we have the entries. The first name is which is mapped to classico italiano, and then the other two were just added. Now in fact the set method actually returns the updated map, allows us to change the set method like this. Let me just say here one more thing. Here I'm setting restaurant dot set categories, and then here I'm using the array. So here I'm using Italian. As you can see here, we have set this. So now let me just log this into the console, and then I will explain you in a bit. Console.log. So when we call out the name here, we are getting Italiano, Classico Italiano, so which is this, okay. And then here we'll say so restaurant dot get. As you can see here, we are getting the where open, so which we set here. When we call this, we are getting the text here. So and also similarly, when we call this get of one, as you can see here, we are getting this where we this references. As you can see this one. So if you declare this instead of number in the format of one, see, it won't get, it is undefined. You have to declare, because here you have defined here in the number, you are calling out here in the string, so it won't allow like that. Similarly, when it is true, and if you give this here in this string format for true, see, it won't access, it is undefined. So whatever the value here, the boolean value you are writing, right, so you need to call out in those only the strings which you called out, you have to give here in the string. So here we set the categories. So here as an array, the value can be anything. And now I can change the next one on here. So I can now say open is set to 11, and then again I can change to the next one, again say close at 23. So let's say as I saved it, and this will then format it nicely. So again calling this set method returns the updated map. So all of this is how the updated map, and we can call set again on the maps, and we can continue this even further. That's not actually so we can actually continue this further up. So here we have already used here boolean values trues and false here. So we can say that we want the map to be true, so to open, so like this I have already shown you, right? So I'm just explaining you how we have written this code, okay? So in order to read the data from map, we can use the get method, and so the get method is also available on all the maps, and so all we need to do is pass in the name of the key to see that. So now let's use boolean keys. So here we have true, false, open and close, and these, let's create something fun. Let's just set the time here to now. So let's just say constant time equals to 0. I'm just setting this now, and then here I'm console.log. Here I'm using rest.get, as I've already said we'll be using the get now. So here I'll say time greater than rest dot, let me just write the code and then I'll explain you why, how it works. So when we save it, see here, now the time here we are setting here was 11 to 11, right? So right now the time is 0. So right now it is showing we are closed, because we have written rest.get time, and we are we are comparing this with this open. When the time is more than 12, here it should be like closed. Here when the time is before after 11, it should be open. So that's how we have passed here it. So right now we have given our time here 0, right? So it is showing that we are closed. So let me just here the set this here time to 21. As you can see here, it is between the 11 and 23, right? So right now it is showing we are open. So that's how we say our restaurant timings were open right now. So in order to read the data from the map, here we use the get method, and so the get method is available on all the maps, and so all we need to do here is pass in the name of the key. So now let me just say here one more example here, console.log. So let me just use rest has. So this just really goes to show the power of having booleans as a map keys. But anyway, let's now keep exploring the methods that are available on maps. So we already have methods to set and to get. Now to check if a map contains a certain key, so let's log to the console after the result of calling the has method. Okay, so as you can see here, we have called the rest as categories, right? So indeed it is true. Then we can also delete elements from the map, and again that happens based on key. So rest dot delete. So let me just show you that here, rest dot delete of 2 for example. Okay, and then here we'll console this and log. Okay, here we'll say rest, as you can see here, rest dot to here, this one, right? Lisbon and Portugal. So this one got deleted here, so you cannot find that here anywhere. So let me just turn this off for now. We don't require that. And we turn this off. See here in the two here we are having the Lisbon, it is getting here. So which we just deleted previously. So basically now comparing these two objects, we can also delete the properties from objects using the something called delete operator. But that's really slow process. Usually that's not encouraged to do that here. About the has method, actually objects do also have a method which is called has own property. We are going to talk about that in the object oriented programming section. So alright, next maps also have the size property. So I'm going to show that here. Here console.log rest dot size. So as you can see here, we have the 8 elements here, and if we just turn this back on, now as you can see it will be here 7. So to finish, we can also clear. So basically remove all elements from the map. So here let me just say rest dot clear. See here the map is everything is cleared and it is 0, it is returning. That's how we delete all the elements in the map. So as you can see here, there is some overlap in the way that we worked with maps and sets, and that's because they were both introduced in the year 6. Now just to finish off, let me just show you. In fact, we use arrays or objects as key map keys. So rest dot let me just say here rest dot set of 1 comma 2, and then here we'll say here the test. See here this array of you are getting right key value and the value. So as we have done this, so let's just do down here again console.log rest dot get of 1 comma 2. So here we are getting undefined, right? The reason for that is that two arrays are actually not the same object. So this array and this one here, even though we wrote them in the same way, so they are not same. So they have the same elements, they are not the same object in the heap. Okay, and the key is exactly the this object here, as I have shown you here, right? So here the key, so this object in memory, and this is not in the memory. Okay, so this cannot work. In order to make this work, we have to do this creating an array 1 2, and then we can use that array. So let me just show you that constant array of 1 comma 2, and then here we'll say get. So that's how we just access this array. Okay, because now of course these two refers to the same place in the memory. So with that we proved that we can indeed use objects as map keys, and this can be useful with the dumb elements. In fact, they are also nothing more than just a special type of object. So let's do that here. So here we'll say rest dot set document dot query selector. Let's just say here h1 element. So basically document dot query selector, this h1 indicates this. Okay, so let me just copy this and paste it before here, and then just remove it from here. So when we declare here, our map is getting here one more value 9. So when we just go into this map, as you can see here, the h1 element. So when you click this, as you can see here, when you select here, so it is getting highlighted there. So the heading h1, as you can see there, right? So that's exactly is the key of the map entry sounds, but it is possible and it can be enabled some advanced functionalities. All right, so we have here learned to create maps, and now how to work with them. Let's continue learning about maps in the next one. So let's wrap up this section. Thank you.